Hey guys, welcome back to ModCons. It is Monday midday. Thank you so much for tuning in. What a week it's been.
We're back.
Oh my goodness.
And there's Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel Reeves and her emergency spring budget.
Yes.
We are going to be discussing all those things. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, I think we know the answer to that. Even papers that are on her side are like saying, this is not the way forward.
Yeah, she's upset everybody, literally.
She is. Anyway, we'll get into it in a bit more detail.
So the Mirror says, balancing the books on the backs of the poor.
Ouch.
Daily Mail says, deluded, my favourite one. Telegraph, 5 years of record taxes.
Ouch.
Guardian, Reeves accused of balancing books at expense of the poor.
Ouch.
Reckless Rachel from the Daily Express.
Aye.
Tanking the economy, killing growth. And the Eye says, tax hikes and extra cuts on the way.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I mean, none of that is
It's not good. It's not good, guys.
That is positive. I mean, I don't know if she'll want to, frame any of those papers.
She should.
She should.
As a reminder of what she's done.
Yeah, exactly. But it's quite scary. So, if you are, I get her sort of, okay, let's give a bit of positivity. So I get her theory, if she's, making it more difficult to claim and, be on benefits because, unless you really need it. So all the people that don't really need it, they're going to get a little push, a nudge to get back to work. Great. Because, we don't want people that don't need it. It's meant to be a stepping stone if you're really in need, just to help you get out of that desperate situation that you're in.
Yeah.
And then you move on and you thrive.
Yeah.
Fine, that's good. However, I don't think she thought it through. So there's about 250,000 people will be directly affected by it.
Yeah.
And I think about 50,000 of those are children. Obviously, there'll be some of those people will be able to get back into work, and that's great. And it's kind of an incentive. But I just don't think she's thought this through.
The thing that they've done is they've looked at some of the conservative policies from before, the reforms that Mel Stride was bringing in, cherry-picked a few, and then made a pig's ear of another few. They tried to reform PIP, but they've reformed it in a way that upset their ranks, their people on their benches.
Yes.
It's upset the people on our benches because they haven't implemented our reforms in the round, as a whole. They've just kind of cherry-picked, and it doesn't quite make sense.
It's patchwork job instead of a holistic approach, which actually would make sense, and that's what you should be doing. But
it's not authentic to them. That's the problem.
Yes.
Like, they're trying to be someone they're not, and when you try and be someone you're not, it doesn't work. You can't really pull it off
because you also don't have the in the ideas behind it and like how is it going to work and what makes it work, and you don't have the passion to follow it as well.
That's it.
But I do think she also looks at like Trump. We mentioned Trump, we've got about 2 minutes in before we mentioned him. He is on a rampage.
Oh God.
But I think she's also kind of trying to copy some of his cut this, cut that, do this, do that, which again, if you know what you're doing and if you do it in a holistic way, then it might have a positive impact, but it's just not hitting. I mean, what are we? The OBR is half right now.
Yeah.
So we're going down, not going up.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No, it's not good. Looking at the budget, looking at her deliver this emergency budget, aka Spring Statement, everyone behind her just looked so depressed. They all looked so depressed because they know this isn't them. It's fundamentally not who they are or what they thought they were going to be like, because they sat on the opposite benches for so long berating the Conservative Party for doing things that had been thought through. Whereas now Rachel Reeves has kind of just pulled this out of the air.
Well, desperation.
Out of desperation, because she had to make up some room. So she's like, okay, they've already got 5 billion of cuts. I'm going to implement those cuts, but in a kind of very random way that doesn't quite make sense, and try and push them through. And just all of her Labour MPs, you can tell that they're really upset, but they can't say anything because they're all new and they're all scared of not being looked after when it comes to the next election. So she came out, she said, oh guys, the world has changed, the world has changed. And we kind of knew exactly where she was going with that. It wasn't me, Gov. It was very much like, hands up, it wasn't me, Gov. It wasn't my budget on Halloween. It wasn't the fact that I'm going to put workers' rights to the point that no one will hire anyone. It wasn't my fault thought that I increased the minimum wage or increased national insurance or increased inheritance tax. It wasn't me, Gav. It was Trump.
Obviously Trump. It's always Trump.
Okay.
It was Trump. I mean, if we'd have been in a COVID year, she would have been COVIDed.
Yeah, she would have been
excuses galore.
She'd have been loving it.
So now Trump is her COVID.
Trump's her COVID, yeah, or Brexit.
Oh my goodness, yeah, or Brexit. And yeah, it's wild. Like, at what point do you actually blame yourself and say, no, this is not working? And when are they actually going to stop saying, oh, well, you were in power for 14
I know.
years?
I think people are sick of it now, to be honest.
It's so infuriating.
Yeah.
I was going to say the word jarring because someone mentioned that the other day. They were like, yes, this is so jarring. I was like, oh, I hate that word, but okay, I was going to use it. It is infuriating.
Yeah. But the thing about this is, like, they talk right, but they act left. And I know that we said that about the Conservatives, but she's actually doing that. They're putting on this big bravado. Like, we're going to cut welfare. We're going to slim the state whilst creating more quangos. We'll cut one quango, but then we'll give you 25 more quangos for the price of it. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
They're cutting welfare by targeting people on disability allowance.
Ridiculous.
Okay. Whether you do that or don't, that's up to you. That's your moral decision.
Yeah.
But then you're also increasing the weekly amount that someone gets on universal credit. So it doesn't make sense.
It
like,
doesn't make
okay,
sense.
so everyone gets more universal credit, but the disabled don't.
In her like theory, it's more about this whole like sick note Britain at the moment. We have a lot of people that have mental health issues.
Absolutely.
And you can't really gauge that. So if you want to play the system, it's quite an easy way to play the system. So it's not like an obvious disability.
Yes.
So I get the theory, but there's no
the right
detail.
thing to do, but the way she's done it is bizarre.
Yeah.
It's because it's not authentic to what she wants to do. Like, she didn't have this idea in October. This has literally just been plucked out of the sky because she needs like 15 billion pounds. And it's like, oh crap, there are some cuts that are already baked in. Let me borrow those and just throw them at the wall. Exactly. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
What's actually your plan to get people into work? What's your plan to help people who have mental health illnesses get out of get off benefits? What is the actual plan? Not just the cut. What is the plan? They don't.
And then also, because they're like put up national insurance and stuff, people are cutting jobs. If that trajectory continues, we are in a real dire situation. It's crazy.
But she did come in. She said, her first line, I think, was, "This Labour government was elected to bring change."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you did. Yes. Yeah, you did. Because when we left, we were the highest growing economy in the G7, but also inflation was at 2%.
Yes.
Inflation has now gone up again, I think, to 3%, and it's going to average 3% throughout the rest of this year.
Yeah.
It's not going to go back to 2% until the end of Parliament, so basically 2028.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was all for. All of the pensioners who have been cold all winter.
Yeah.
All of the farmers who have been freaking out all winter and will be for the next 4 years.
Stressful.
All of this stress that you're imposing on everyone, saying you want growth.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, we're in exactly the same situation as we started. What was the point?
There's no point. Okay, and going on to, obviously she mentioned building houses. I have like a little it's a sticker.
Homes.
No, I don't. I love architecture.
She loves architecture. Everyone does. No, everyone wants beautiful. Well, not everyone, but most people want
exactly
beautiful.
But they're talking about building on green belts again, and they're like, that's it, we're going to build everywhere, every how. And I think that's just so annoying, and it's just annoying. And she's like, she says it in such a positive way, and it's not a positive thing. And there are so many sort of elephants in the room, so to speak, because there are other things that need to be done and could free up more space for people that actually need homes that are actually could be available if they actually did the right thing. And I'm talking about illegal immigration, because it's out of control. Like it's up, and they were meant to smash the gangs.
I know.
What have they done?
No, that is a big problem, and it's an unspoken about problem. Well, especially by the Labour Party.
Yeah, and I just don't understand. Okay, I would like to talk a little bit about Kemi, because obviously there was like PMQs before the whole emergency spring budget of 2025 by the Labour government. So her questions were really based on school, and should we ban the smartphones because it's detrimental to kids' education and it's a distraction,
and mental health. I mean, if you're talking about you want to get kids you want children to have better mental health, and surely phones is like the first place to start, right?
Well, yeah.
You think.
And I found Keir to be really dismissive of the whole thing, and it's because they already voted against banning them, making it a broad ban across the whole of England or whatever. And I don't know, I think it's not such a big deal, like in the scheme of things. However, these small steps make such an impactful difference. And I think that the way that he was so dismissive of it was kind of annoying. But I want her to just I'm still waiting for her to be like, pow. I don't know, is it ever going to come?
Well, I think last week she was very impressive with him, and he was just like, he just couldn't he couldn't say anything like I am right now. Like he was just like tripping over his words.
I like it when that happens.
Yeah,
but it doesn't happen. I want it to be like consistent. So it's like, you know what I mean?
I think with the Keir Starmer thing, like what she does is she points out things that then the week after come up. So like she pointed out the hospice thing like 2 weeks ago, and it seemed like kind of random at the time, but then it came up, and it was like, whoa, this is really important. And it's quite good that she's already flagged it.
Yes, exactly.
And it's kind of showing that she's leading the narrative.
Yes.
And I think the phone stuff is interesting because the week before he'd just been saying how he'd been watching Adolescents. And he was like so traumatized by it for his kids. And then the next week he's like, who cares about phones and stuff? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
That does not consistent
care. So things like that do kind of start to paint a picture of who he really is.
It's true. I feel like it's a bit too subtle for the general public because not many people watch it, right? So you only get sound bites. And if you only get sound bites, it can be what's the word? It can be just totally missed. And that's not my problem, but I would like it to be something that is like more headline grabbing, you know.
I think with this week though, she probably thought anything I do is probably going to be swallowed up anyway because the budget's coming straight after.
Absolutely.
That's going to be the thing that so anything I say, there's no point in me
doesn't
like
matter.
causing waves because it's like it's going to be
that's true.
So I think that's probably the rationale.
I agree with that. But, I think so. But yeah,
But it also was funny that he was like, "Oh, who cares about phones in schools?" And then like in his next answer was like, "Oh, we do need it in more." So it's like you've just completely contradicted yourself.
And he's like, "Most schools do it anyway."
And then he was like, "We do need more."
So that was Kemi's input this week.
And then Ed Davey kind of he's trying to be like the anti-Trump guy now. That's like his thing. Which I guess will appeal to like a lot of his base. But it does seem like what Keir Starmer was saying as well, but I don't like to agree with him, but he was like, this isn't very constructive. It's kind of random and not helpful, and you're not really being a serious person. And he basically just shut him down. And it was true. It's like, this isn't a serious point you're making. It's like, I'm obviously not going to do that. I'm the Prime Minister of England. Like, what are you doing?
And the point is, we are meant to have a special relationship with the US. So even if, which obviously we know the Labour Party don't have a fondness of Trump. They have to work with him. And you have to work with your fellow, like your colleagues. And so it's not
no, it's absurd. Yes, budget. Back to the budget. So obviously things like the welfare came up. I wrote here, kids, I'm look like he'd seen a case the whole time. He was just really stunned. I think he just had debt interest was at 105.2 billion in this financial year. That's just the interest on our debt. Isn't that insane?
That is insane.
Everyone just glosses over this.
I know.
Let's spend more here. Let's spend more. Hello, you just said the interest on our debt was 105.2 billion pounds, and you're boasting about a £5 billion cut. That's not going to touch the side. Like, get a clue.
This is also why I guess admire might be a word I might use for Trump, because he's like, we want to get our debt down. We want to be, you know, self-sufficient. We want to do, and I just feel like so many countries are not even thinking in that stratosphere. And that is wild.
People are slightly sleepwalking at the moment. It feels like they're not really aware. I don't know if it's like a COVID hangover or whatever, that they just don't seem to be aware of the situation, like financially, that we are in. And talking about growth doesn't create growth. Like, we've actually got to get out of the way of people and stop putting pressure on every little aspect of their lives. It's insane.
All you want to do is tax everything.
And more taxes are going to come in that autumn budget, the next autumn budget.
Horrible. And
Oh,
yeah, it just means the wealthy who actually, provide services and make things
mm.
and have companies will just keep moving out.
Before the spring statement, I think it was the last question or second to last question. I can't remember who it was. One of the Conservative MPs stood up and asked Keir Starmer, just since we're all here, just want you to put on the table, do you still have confidence in the Chancellor? And he goes, I have 100% confidence in the Chancellor. I sat down, and then she came out with this, and I was
Yeah.
like, really?
Like, did you know what was coming?
Yeah, like,
Did she brief you?
I don't see how she will actually last a lot autumn. I think she will
I
because
know.
he's like dedicated to her, but I
Yeah,
don't understand why.
I know. I mean, yeah,
So in June, she's going to have her spending review.
yes.
So that's when she's going to speak to all the, she's going
Can't
to
wait.
tell all of the departments,
Can't wait.
you've got this, you've got 20% cuts, you've got 10%
Yeah,
cuts, you've got 5%. So that's also going to be
yeah,
really interesting.
yeah,
And also to see how the ministers, whether they start to get a bit disgruntled.
yeah. And
Place.
also, will she have the foresight to actually cut in the right places? Because, if you're cutting some areas, you need
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Well, like
It's
justice, exactly.
exactly.
So that's going to get a cut because
Yeah,
obviously she doesn't want to cut education, she doesn't want to cut health,
yeah,
but justice. And it's like, well, when you came in, you made this big noise about
yes,
us leaving the prisons bursting at the seams.
yeah.
So how does cutting the Justice
It
Department
doesn't
budget
make sense.
help that?
Doesn't make sense. Do you think they should build a prison?
Yes, they should, but where?
I don't
That's the
know.
problem. People don't want prisons by their
No, no
houses.
one wants a prison by the house. And also they're going to be building everywhere, so there'd be no prisons by anyone's house. But
One thing I do want to
yeah,
say,
go on.
and it does irk me, and I know exactly why they've done it, because their polling shows that if you mention the mini budget and you mention Liz Truss, people come
Yeah.
back on side with them.
Yes.
That's their way of trying to
Yeah.
say, we're the good guys, we're going to be okay. Don't go back to those crazy
Yeah.
Tories, they messed you up. But she keeps forgetting the fact, or she keeps negating to mention
Yeah.
that we had Rishi Sunak for 2 years in between Liz Truss
Yes.
and her.
Yes.
And in those 2 years, we got inflation down to 2%.
Yeah.
She is now averaging inflation at 3.2% this year. So I wish she would stop. Liz Truss's history.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though Liz Truss doesn't want to be history.
No,
She is.
she is. It's done and dusted.
I know it's a political tactic, but it just makes them seem
Yeah.
really pathetic.
Yeah, it's the same with that. Oh, 14 years. Okay, we got it. It's all these little sound bites
Yeah.
that just really are annoying. I would love it. Like, I mean, obviously, we're affiliated, but I would love it if whatever government was in power actually did the most amazing things for this country.
Yeah.
I would be like, wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
And that's just not happening.
People actually, and like the Conservative Party say it all the time, like if she introduces sensible things, or if they have sensible
Yeah.
policies or do sensible things,
Yeah.
we're obviously going to back them.
Yes.
We want our country to succeed.
Yeah.
The problem is she doesn't do sensible things. She doesn't have sensible policies, so it makes it really hard.
Yeah,
It makes it difficult.
It does. And again, it's all about the sound bites.
Yeah.
So something always sounds good,
Yeah.
but then, okay, but what's going on around it?
Yeah.
How is it? What's the knock-on domino effect? Because, that's what you need to know. And that's what people don't really kind of hear. And if you're not interested in politics, you probably think, well, that they're doing a great job
Yeah.
because of this, that, and the other.
And also the way she presented that whole
Yeah.
thing. If you weren't really listening and
Yeah.
you're just kind of like
Yeah.
washing up or whatever, it's like, oh, it sounds all right. Yeah.
Sounds yeah.
Okay. The way she just slips in and gross halved
Yeah.
for the rest of the
Yeah.
year, and
Like,
got a
well done.
£1 billion of debt and trust. You're like,
Well,
"Shut
well
up."
done. Well done.
Good stuff. But she said she's going to do voluntary exits for the civil service.
Yeah.
So that was her, like you mentioned earlier,
Yes.
like she's trying to do a bit of a Trump. That was
Yeah.
her trying to do a bit of a Trump. But then they also create new departments and new quangos
Yeah.
and new things. So it's like, well, you
Yeah.
give with one and you take with the other, and the more you give with is much
Yeah.
more than the hand that you take with.
Exactly.
But
I do think they should cut the fat. Anyone that is just not productive and just, not doing anything, because they should be like, the systems should be running smoothly with the amount of people we have.
our main solution is voluntary redundancies, which I don't know if she's actually going to follow through. Like a lot of it's just talk. That's why they keep saying they want 10 years of renewal, because
Yeah.
they know that it's not possible to do in 5 years.
Yes.
But if we give them another 5 years, this country will literally be dust.
Yeah. No longer great.
No longer good.
We should start wearing. I saw someone wearing a mega hat the other day.
Oh yeah, I've seen
England
those.
great again.
That'd be great. Actually, weirdly enough, because the shadow cabinet,
Yeah.
they went to like the old archives,
Yeah.
and looked at like old election posters,
Yeah.
and one of them was Winston Churchill saying, "Make Great Britain great again."
There you go.
If he started
He
it.
did.
Churchill started "Make
Good
Britain
old
great
William.
again." Legend. See, Trump stole it from us, actually.
Yeah, we knew that, but he has a penchant for England and Scotland,
That's true.
so
That's
we'll
true.
let him have
Unlike
it.
JD Vance,
Oh,
who I'm
oh,
falling out of love with. I have to say, it was a
I
short love affair.
yeah, he does seem a bit mean. Like he doesn't
Why is he
really.
so anti us?
I think it's more about Europe, and we're kind of like
Being like looped in.
looped in
Yeah.
because we're right next door and we
Yeah.
were part of the EU. So
Yeah.
it's
And
like,
we're technically European, but
yes,
we're also, we have our own
yeah,
identity.
we do.
That's why
Our
we
own
left the
sovereign.
EU. We're sovereign again. Hello.
Hello. But yeah, so I think he's just, getting frustrated. And maybe he's frustrated with what he sees going on in government.
Yeah.
And that's enough to
But maybe we're frustrated with some of the things they do. But
maybe
maybe we don't put it in a signal WhatsApp chat
to a reporter.
to a reporter.
It's a bit much.
So
But
yeah, so he's not feeling us, and do you know what, JD? I'm not feeling you. Before, whilst Keir Starmer was speaking in PMQs, she
Yeah.
looked at Angela, and was like trying to like sweeten her
Oh
up.
God.
And Angela's like, "Oh yeah." And
Yeah.
then she was like, "Yeah, we're friends again. I've forgotten." But I now realize why she was trying to sweeten her up, because Angela Rayner,
Yes.
has got her out of some hot water, because her planning and policy
Yeah.
framework policy is actually the only thing that's been her saving grace in
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
spring emergency budget.
Because it's sort of it's a nod to growth and to building and
Yeah.
to infrastructure and us, being the top of the game
Yeah.
again. But still, I'm not happy with it.
And I've got a lot of thoughts on like whether
Yeah.
that's actually going to work. Like, you
Yeah.
can say you're going to build 1 million houses, but are you? Not
Also,
sure.
what about the infrastructure? But then you're going to need like railways everywhere because you want to build in rural areas.
Yeah.
They don't have the infrastructure set up. It's
No.
like major works. So I'm
Yeah.
really against
Yeah.
most of it because
Yeah.
I do think the beauty of the UK is, some of the rolling fields and country
Yeah.
lands, and we should that should be protected territories. And I know some of it is, and some of it
Yeah.
hopefully will stay so. But she's loosening the belt so that they don't have to be.
Yeah.
And that is really driving me mad. But anyway,
like you say, that it's weird to put most of the onus on rural communities and not in towns
Yeah.
and cities where there is more demand and potentially more appetite
Yeah.
For things to be built.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, all of London doesn't want to be a skyscraper, and it's unfair to say that all of London should be built on, but there are lots of parts of London where there's still opportunity, especially on the outer skirts, more so than in the Cotswolds. Also, she said, is that she said the OBR have now said that they're going to make 1.3 million homes, which isn't the 1.5 million that's in their manifesto, and the 1.5 million they've been banging on about since their manifesto. So they've already been told you're not going to make it.
Yes. Failing.
It's really failing.
Close though. It's still
close. I don't think they'll get there, to be honest. I don't think they'll get there, because they have to make like 308,000 or something like that, 308,000 a year, and I don't know how much they've done in the last 6 months, but it's not that much.
My question is, do they count them from when they've been built or when they've been planned to be built?
I think they do it from finishes.
Okay.
But there is data for starts as well. So like Sadiq Khan, he used to talk about how many houses he'd built, but he was always talking about starts and not talking about finishes. So you can count either. But obviously it makes more sense to count the ones that are actually done.
Well, I agree. But if they want to fudge the figures,
they could potentially do that.
Exactly.
So that was pretty much it. She said that the housing had basically saved her. She also said we'd be £500 better off, everyone, by the end of this parliament. I think it got debunked pretty much straight away.
Considering everything's going up, like all of our bills are going up. Everything else is going up. And the fact that, she put national insurance, everything. So that means the cost of your groceries are going to go up. And local farming, obviously their costs will go up.
The level of GDP growth would be 0.2% in 2029, 2030.
Okay.
So 0.2%.
Okay. Sounds a lot. I would like to say, if we carry on the way we're going with all the people that are coming into the country, really?
it all gets wiped out. Because if you think about it, her last budget said that we were going to have 2% growth, and it's
Yeah.
already been halved.
Yeah, she's accounting for what is the current state.
Yeah.
And that's going to change. We
Totally.
already know that like there's going to be an influx of people from wherever, all over the world, hopefully highly skilled people, please.
Well, you think it's summer's coming as well.
Yeah.
You're going to get lots more boats.
Lots more boats. So yeah, I just, yeah, that's pie in the sky.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know.
yeah. And also, this was the day before Trump said he was going to put tariffs on all cars.
Yeah.
So
25%.
yeah.
Ouch.
So they said, obviously, this budget or spring statement is
Emergency.
emergency isn't taking into account, well, it's not taking into account the employment bill, rights
Anything.
bill that's going to come, that's going to change everything.
Anything, yeah.
And it's not taking into account Trump
Yeah.
and what he might do with tariffs. Less than 24 hours later, he goes, here is
yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. But they should have sort of prepared for that or seen that coming.
Yeah. She
didn't. Let's see what
she gave herself exactly the same headroom as she did last time.
I know. Oh, anyway, tell us what you think. Do add some comments, let us know. We will get back to you. But yeah, what a crazy time we're living in. Another spring budget put a spring in your step.
I hope it did.
I don't know. I think this breakdown might have put a spring in a step.
I think it's depressed me, to be honest. I feel like Keir Starmer listening to it.
But thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you. Don't forget Monday middays, ModCons.